Hey guys, welcome to another interview podcast episode at UrbanCred Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie, and today we have a special guest joining us today. His name is Justin. He is the co-founder of Leander Studios, and he's been instrumental in shaping the brand's vision, focusing on creating timeless and functional pieces that cater to professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives alike. With a deep commitment to quality, really innovative kind of thoughts behind this design and craftsmanship. Justin and his team has really pushed the boundaries of what modern carry solution can be. And we're really excited to kind of hear more about the journey, inspiration behind the brand, and what really sets this studio apart from the rest of the everyday essentials around the world. So let's welcome Justin. If you want to give us a quick bio or intro to yourself, take
Beautiful.
it away.
No, thanks, Eddie, and really appreciate your time and congrats on everything that you've done. And very excited for your new storefront to open up. So huge congratulations to you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. That's a secret.
Yeah, pre-hype. We're good now. We're good.
Yeah.
Listen. So Drew originally founded Leander, and I kind of helped him out at the beginning, and then recently sort of joined in more of a full-time capacity. And so, for me, it's been really exciting to sort of build a vision with him, right? And, at Leander, our mission is really to inspire and empower people through the product and content that we create, which I realize is sort of a big, audacious goal, but as we looked at sort of the market and what it was and try to think of things from a product perspective and then a brand perspective. From a product perspective, Drew's the most talented designer I've ever worked with. He's just fantastic. He's ex-Special Forces, master's in design from NC State, and, has done a ton of great projects for different companies, government, military, et cetera. And so on the product side, we really look at unique systems of product where we can help elevate certain areas of people's days. And so we started with Workspace, and it was like, okay, and Drew and I are probably in similar life situations to you, Eddie, which I just learned, which, we got kids running around, we've got work, we've got a business we're trying to start. There's a lot of things going on. And I think there's a lot of people in that situation, right? And so from a product standpoint, it's like, hey, how can we have great systems of product that help to elevate your everyday? We started with Workspace, just very clean, super minimal, but great leathers, woods, materials that, just really work together seamlessly, and then went from there to our everyday professional carry assortment, which is bags and wallets. And again, all really integrate, right? You can take the Workspace stuff in the everyday carry, right? A lot of people right now, we're both in the home office. At some point, go to the other office. There's a lot of moving around. And so we try to be as versatile and thoughtful as we can with the products. On the brand side of things, for me, real quick on my background, I spent my first probably 12 years of my career at Reebok and Adidas. I was with Fredericks for about 6 years, and then managed some smaller companies. Most recent was at GoRuck for a few years, which was a great experience. But kind of having that background of performance brands and lifestyle brands, the cool thing about performance brands is they're very inspirational, right? Just do it, or, pick your favorite phrase. Lifestyle brands, for whatever reason, tend to be sort of status-based, or they've got a really good item. And for us, we want to look at that and flip it on its head and say, okay, well, what can we do from a brand standpoint to kind of pick people up and be really positive? Because, that's like I said before, everyone's got a lot going on in life right now, and there's a ton of noise out there. And so, that's really what we're trying to merge together, right? How can we take this goal of an inspirational lifestyle brand and have content that's inspiring, and then from a product standpoint, just really take those areas of life and bring great solutions to life. And listen, we're only a year in, so we're very, very new, but it's been a ton of fun, and we're just really excited to chat with you a little bit today.
Great. Yeah, that's and it's funny because you're talking from like two perspectives, like Drew, which is your partner, and then yourself. So let's go to like the name of the company, right? Like Leander Studio. Yeah. Like what was the idea behind the vision, or the vision behind that?
Yeah, great question. I'll take the Leander part and then the studio part, and hopefully bring it all together for you. So Leander is actually a family
Right.
name for Drew, and a pretty cool history to the name when you look it up. In Greek mythology, actually means lion man, and so we have a couple of sayings that we lean on. One is "elevate your everyday," which is really our main tagline. But then occasionally we'll use "be a lion," right? And I think there's all days where we've got
Hmm.
to kind of do our best and beast our way through a day. But that's the backstory on
Hmm.
Leander, and obviously very very personal to Drew as a founder. And then on the studio, we always want to have a personal touch to the products, right? And we build a good portion of our products here in the U.S. now. We do some overseas, and then Drew does a fair amount of really hand finishing different products. So a lot of our workspace stuff, he's hand finishing before it goes out. So we always want to have that sort of studio design element as a portion of it. So those were really kind of the two key components that came together in why the name Leander Studio.
Cool. And then I know that you guys are relatively new compared to the rest of like the companies out there
Sure.
and brands out there. How did this kind of start then? Because it's it's not like 10 years ago or however long ago was it when like the first Peak Designs bags entered Kickstarter or like other bags just starting out. You have a lot of like competitors across the market
Yeah.
now. What was the spark that influenced the kind of decision to start this company?
Yeah. Um, great, great question. I'm going to try not to be too
Yeah.
long-winded in my answer, but I do think it's a really good
Yeah.
question because it's a unique. I think it's a really unique time we're in. I think I'll give you a simple answer on the decision. I think at some point in life,
Yeah.
you look around and you have dreams to do something and start something. At some point, you just have to start, right? And so
Hmm.
it was sort of hey, listen, we're going to push forward, and obviously with everything, you learn as you go and you make adjustments. I think to your point on kind of starting a brand 10 years ago versus starting a brand today. I think there was this really great run 10 years ago of direct to consumer companies, a lot of them probably singular product focused, and Facebook was this fantastic returning marketing channel, and things were kind of simple that way, right? And now you've got everyone just so much more sophisticated across channels of marketing. You've got all of the big companies buying in. And so it's a real challenge to kind of get people to profitably know who you are. And so for
Hmm.
us, it always comes back to a personal element of having conversations like this. We're both friendly with the crew over at Huckberry, and so they were our first retail partner and obviously a great brand to be able to get other small brands out there. We've become friendly with the founders and people at Bespoke Post, which has been another good partner of ours. And we look to do a lot. I mean, obviously, of course, we're always happy when people come direct to our site and buy, and that's wonderful. But for us, we're always trying to work and find opportunities out there with like-minded people or brands. We've got a small collaboration launching with Culture Kings in about should launch in a couple weeks, where we did a custom bag for them. So again, for us, it's how can we partner with other people that are out there and sure, maybe a little bit bigger, more established than we are, but we can also bring a unique perspective from a product and brand point of view. But yeah, listen, it's a complicated world today to be a smaller brand, and I think there's I joke with people. I think listen, it's one of the hardest times to start a brand, but I also think
Hmm.
if you can get through this, I don't think a lot of people are. And so for us, it's really just, hey, we just want to stick with it and we're going to keep pushing forward.
If you have that vision, you have that inspiration to do it, and you have that kind of like the go, the feeling of like, oh, this is going to
Yeah,
work. I think it's worth a try. I always think it's worth trying rather than kind of sitting in your whatever job before and like regretting or just wondering if it'll ever work. So if it works, then great, and if it doesn't, at least you knew you gave it a
that's right.
try. So
Yeah, that's right.
that's always good to hear. Yeah, the products you said started off as kind of the kind of like the home goods, which is like the everyday carry but
Yep.
home stuff, and that's like trays, and you utilize like a lot of wood
Hmm.
there, and it's like it's very minimal aesthetic and it looks
Nice.
great. You start off with that, and then you jumped into like a carry
Yeah.
goods, such as your bags, currently your flat bags, packs, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like, what was this decision to start with the those goods rather than just going right into like everyday
Yeah,
carry?
good question. And honestly, a lot of it was just timing and our ability to move quickly in workspace. I think we always knew that
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to Well, even before I say we wanted to get into everyday care, I think we just have a bigger vision on product, and I think for us, again, it's about looking at problems and solving them, and a little bit less about just product category. But the first two that we sort of started down the path of design and exploring were workspace and everyday carry. And the reality of workspace, because we do it all in the U.S., it moved really quickly, right? We get our wood components from a great company that's just outside of Chicago. Leathers, obviously, we do different leathers depending on the product, but we use a lot of U.S. leathers, some Italian leathers, and so the workspace just came together first. Honestly, it was faster to get done, and that was the first one we really got out there. And even with our EDC stuff, which is doing great, I mean, we still see the most traction on sort of the valet trays and those original items. And I think it's just because they've been around a little bit longer. But there, I can't say there was some great strategy concept to that. I think there are both areas that we knew we wanted to be in, and with workspace, we were just able to get there a little faster, and so that was where we focused our energies out of the gate.
But like we spoke about, like being like a small business allows for uh, us to be more nimble rather than compared to like the bigger
Sure.
boys like Adidas or Nike, and then you do have that mobility to be able to switch up or try different things without having to worry about the repercussions of whether they do well or not. Um, and I do you feel that way as well? Is that something that you think is a benefit?
Well, we definitely want them to do well. I'll say that because the small guys are going to worry more about cash in the bank. But
That's true.
yes, from a nimble perspective, of course, right? Obviously, if you're in a huge organization, there's a lot more people to sort of get aligned, and when it's a few people working together, it's much easier. And I'd say the other thing about workspace that was fun for us is it's a really low minimum space to be in, right? Because Drew's hand finishing a lot. I mean, the wood pieces, and this was all sort of a new learning to me coming from bags, apparel, footwear. Wood pieces, a lot of it is all machines, right? So whether you want 25 or 5,000, sure, the price is different, but it's much more, attainable from a minimum standpoint. And so for us, it's been fun. We've done some custom projects, even just for hotels who have found our stuff online. We can custom stamp, we can do different leathers, we can do different colors. And so that's really been a nice kind of advantage and win for us, to your point of being small and flexible, of like, hey, an opportunity that maybe a big brand would just sort of say, hey, distraction for us. For us is a really fun and interesting way for us to get our brand out there. And again, really come back to, how we connect with people.
Hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned that, right? You have a workspace to kind of like put these all together. Is I know that sometimes when doing that, it sort of like doing it in house sort of limits how many you can produce at a certain time. Is that something like a worry where one day Huckberry or Huckberry two
Sure.
or something like that comes around and they're like, hey, I want like 50,000 or something. Like, is that something like, oh shit,
Yeah.
what do we do
Yeah.
now? Like, is that something that you have to worry
Yeah.
about?
Definitely a good problem when somebody asks me for 50,000. But yes, it's definitely something we think about, right? Like inherently, your time is limited when you've got one employee, in this case, Drew, who's doing a lot of that finishing. And so for us, we've tried to find a balance. Luckily, we have great partners in the U.S. We've got great partners
Mm-hmm.
overseas, and so we've been able to sort of develop the same items in multiple places, so that in the case of like a bespoke post, who they do a great job with their sort of boxes and bundles and higher units, we can flex those to a partner to create or finish, or even like if it requires custom stamping. And really the goal on the studio front and what we do is to make sure that we can really keep things special and unique, and we can do kind of interesting projects like the hotel stuff that's come up. Or sometimes we'll just have certain people reach out and they want something really unique, right? Like our emerald green leather was actually just a customer that reached out and asked for that, and we sort of investigated and
Mm-hmm.
went from there, and since has become kind of our third most popular behind the black and the camo. So long-winded answer, but yeah, I think it's definitely something we've tried to manage and make sure that we have stock so that we can service customers quickly, because no one likes to order something and wait that long. But we do
Right.
always want to keep that sort of hand touch and custom experience as well.
Cool. And then I know like Leander Studios, it's obviously focused on a specific, well, currently like very specific customer base. Um, how do you, when you create new products, how do you, because you have to. your brand has a certain market in
Yeah.
mind to kind of sell to. Like, how do you, when you design products, and how do you keep your audience in mind when you develop new
I mean,
products?
I thought a lot of it's conversation, right? I mean, there's the
Mm,
majority of customers. I mean, we email back and forth with, right? And that's a benefit of being smaller, right? I mean, you get to a size and scale, and you
mm,
can't do that. I mean, the good thing is we have conversations with a lot of people. Anyone I send out product to just to try out. I mean, we try to be very um, almost push you to the point of like, hey, tell us what you don't like, right? And all these things are specific. Doesn't mean you're going to please everyone, but I think, we've seen our audience, and it was interesting when we set out. I think I said at the beginning, our goal is to inspire and empower. And if I take that to our more specific statement, is to inspire and empower creatives, professionals, and entrepreneurs. And it's been really fun for us as we get orders, as we talk to people, as we get to know customers. Those are the people who are buying. A lot of people that a lot of time they're small business owners, or we get a lot of people in the design space. And so, and the good thing is typically when you're in that world, you've got people who do have a lot of opinions. And so for us, it's kind of getting that feedback and understanding, okay. And luckily, everyone has more or less really loved what they've had. But it's those little pieces of feedback that we say, okay, how can we make version 2.0 better? How can we make version 3.0 better? But the simple answer is really, I mean, you've got to have a way to talk to your customers. And for us, we can make that very personal at this point.
great. And I know prior to this journey, or this project or brand that
Sure.
you have, you guys or Drew worked at GoRuck. He used to be, you said special forces or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? So, and now this brand is kind of not really focused on military style bags
Yeah.
or like rucking or anything
Yeah.
like that. How does the approach different compared to like you guys working with GoRuck, because it's pretty much like different kind of
Yeah.
markets and different kind, and going back to like what you said answered before with customers and things like that, the customers are different too,
Yeah.
so they have like different like
Yeah.
requirements or like things that they kind of value. So then how does that like, what was it like transitioning?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to hit your question right out of the gate, I think that the focus is the customer, right? And yes, I think definitely
Mhm.
think it's a different customer between brands. And so it's just, that inherently is going to sort of change the products that you create and build.
Mhm.
From a transition standpoint, Drew was at GoRuck for probably about a year, right? And so that was when
Mhm.
he left, and I think he started to work on this a little bit beforehand. And I would occasionally help him here or there, and then got sort of more involved as I got to the end of my time at GoRuck. But I think it all comes back to the customer, right? And obviously GoRuck's having a great run right now and has done a fantastic job and services their customer extremely well. And so for us, yes, customers a little bit different, but obviously we want to make sure that we're bringing products that really get people excited and that they love. And that, to me, more than anything, it's like how can you get products in people's hands that they want to tell friends and family about, right? Like everyone sort of forgets that old school, like because there's so many advanced marketing channels, and everyone wants to talk about AI and all of these great technological advances out there,
Mhm.
and all those things are great. But at the end of the day, if you and I are friends and I say, hey, I just bought this from Huckberry or you name it, and I love it, you should check it out. That carries more weight still than anything else, right? And so for us, it's
Mhm.
really, again, understanding that customer and doing our best to put great products in their hands.
Mm. And the product itself, there is, I'm sure people are interested. There are like brands all over are always like this proprietary kind of this material or
Sure.
whatnot. You guys have something called the Leander
Yeah.
leather. Can you kind of like explain what's so special about it and kind of what the process is like for making something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, every product project is so fun and interesting. And so that the way that we got to Leander Leather, to give a little backstory, is as we were developing it, Drew looked at waterproof zippers. And originally he was sort of exploring them because they actually look really nice next to leather, right? The tone
Hmm.
is beautiful. Like there's almost no transition. And so, and that it was actually what sort of got us thinking of, okay, well, is there something to water resistant or eventually waterproof leather? Because there's really no one out there talking about that / owning that space. And when you think about leather, a lot of people, especially in nicer leather, right? These are not cheap bags. Like, you want to be able to wear it, right? You want to have to look at the forecast and go, all right, it's going to sprinkle today. I'm nervous about it. And so that really, the zipper and sort of that discussion got us going to how can we develop the best possible leather for this bag. And obviously I'd say you're trying to thread the needle between a few things, right? There's the hand of leather that inherently people want this sort of lovely soft hand. But then there's also the water resistance and the durability. And so we worked with Global Leather through our supplier who builds our bags, and sort of went through a few different iterations, and then finally got to the point where after testing it, and this, I forget where I move my bag that I use every day. I guess it's right over here. But it's interesting. Like, a lot of times I have the bag I use every day hung up, and people can't tell the difference between a brand new one or the one that I've been using for 6 months and dragged on 50 airplanes and, all over the place. And you and I both have little kids, so you know what they do to any of your possessions. They like to beat them up. And so that was sort of, it just took the time and sort of energy to develop it and make sure that we found a product that was really going to hold up and last in a way that we wanted it to.
And then like your wallets also like they are kind of special as well in a way where it's a combination of the leather that you guys produced and like a non-slip nylon to kind of prevent the stretching.
Yeah.
Like, how did that idea come about? Like, what was the problem behind that?
Yeah. Well, the problem is we'll see if my demonstration works, right? Like, this is an excuse. I forget what brand this is, but it's a nice phone case, nice leather phone case. I got some paint on it when we repainted the house, so ignore that, right? But if I take one card out of it and I turn this upside down, that happens, right? And so again, like, take the kids to the grocery store, you're trying to pay, you're trying to like keep everyone organized, and that happens, and it's annoying, right? And it'll happen with wallets as well. And so that was just sort of a problem we discussed, and it's like, all right, I mean, there's no perfect solve unless you want to lock it down, which is going to make it harder to sort of get things out. But when we worked with the factory, it was like, okay, well, we can put this textured nylon, which we call non-slip nylon, inside as the liner. And what it does is it just gives you an additional level of security. Like, you can still get the cards out pretty easily, but if you turn it upside down and shake it a little bit, they don't fall out, right? And so again, it's just, if I go back to our premise on the product side, it's what are these different areas of life, whether that's out at the store, whether that's at the desk, whether that's on an airplane going somewhere, where we can make lives easier and better.
Yeah, I think that's a great little detail for people who are listening, because it's not as apparent. And I mean, sometimes people don't read, but like sometimes when you get a wallet, it does get loose over time. So to have that feature is good, because I can't like count the amount of times where you're like dealing with kids and then like you have to fumble to pay, and then your wife is like saying, hurry up, and then you're like, you know what I mean?
I don't know what you're talking
about. Yeah, no, exactly. What am I talking about? Yeah. I can already feel my wife's like breathing over me right now. But yeah, so that's I think that's a great feature to have for that hypothetical situation. So then, like, Leander has built these products, and you guys obviously value quality. You guys also value like purpose and longevity for your products. How do you guys how important is durability to your brand, and like how do you ensure that your products can handle like a long, just the lifetime of whatever? Like, how does it stay the go-to bag for your customers?
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, we guarantee for life outside of natural sort of wear and tear, right? So anything within reason, we're guaranteeing. And it all goes back to materials and quality and how much do you want to test and make sure the product's right. And so we try to spend a lot of time there. Obviously, with Drew's background and designing for the military, like, he's designed for people where quality is way more important than the daily bag. But we try to take that and those learnings and make sure we apply it. Because at the end of the day, it's like you want somebody to have something and love it for a really long time. And if they want another one, great. If they want another colorway, great. But also, you want to be able to have the bag and say, this is the bag that I've been using for 10 years, and look at it. It's still fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And then how does and sustainability is
Mm-hmm.
like everyone's talking
Yeah.
about it. There's like blue
Yeah.
sign and then like 1% for the
Yep.
planet. Like, how does that how do you guys incorporate that into like your design and materials?
Yeah, I think for us, we try to keep things really minimal and we try to eliminate waste as much as possible, right? And even when you go into leather, like, it's like we're obviously leather is an after product of meat, right? And so using
Right.
that material it eliminates the wasting of it. And then when we actually build a
Mhm.
bag or we build workspace, any waste we'll put into cord taco or smaller items, right? I mean, and having spent a lot of times at big companies and going to factories, like waste is one of the things that people I think aren't really aware of, right? There's easy ways to
Mhm.
market sustainability, like, oh, it's a recycled polyester, or it's an organic cotton, or all of these different things. And all of those things are great. I'm not saying they're not. But typically, if you go to a factory floor and you look at where they're cutting the fabric to make a t-shirt, there's a ton of waste and it sort of just gets picked up and thrown away. And so for us, that's really an area we try to focus on and make sure that, every piece of material gets used to the fullest of possibility.
That's
Yeah.
true, right? Yeah,
And
I
well, I'm
think.
sorry, Eddie. One other thing I'd say to your question on
Mm.
durability, to me, that's the other big thing, right? I mean, there's a lot of sort of buy and throw away products out there. And so for us, it's like if we can help eliminate the waste of product and we can make sure that you love your product for a long time and you don't have to go buy, 5 bags or 3 workspace things or whatever the item is. To me,
Mhm.
that's probably the most under talked about part of sustainability is okay, well, how long are you actually using it and not having to throw it away? And so for us, that's a big one
Right.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Uh, yeah. Sometimes just the easiest way to contribute back to the planet Earth is just to not produce so much
Yeah,
waste. So
yeah,
yeah. How was like the journey? Was it like rewarding? Were there times where you freaked out? Like, um, you had like bad customers, you had a bad batch of bags or
yeah.
something. Did you have, no money in the bank? Did you have to sell your kid, to kind of move forward? You know what I mean?
Not
Like,
yet, not yet. And we're gonna avoid that one. We'll avoid that one.
fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Well, listen, I think one, both Drew and I still have, we're both still doing full time things where we launch this, right? So I think there's always that decision and sort of hard choice of when do you go all for something. I think right now we both got sort of great things, and we can also commit a decent amount of time to this, which is creates a good balance. Um, you definitely have those moments where stuff goes wrong. Like we placed an order recently and we had a cost wrong on a sheet and the cost was twice as much as we thought it was. And you got to move forward and make the order. And you thought you were going to make $5,000 and you're going to lose $5,000. We definitely don't have a lot of money in the bank going into Q4, but that was a conscious decision of, hey, it's like you have to have products and you have to kind of be ready to service the market when you get there. But I'd say that's what you sign up for, right? I mean, you've lived this and you're further along than me, and congrats for how far you guys have come and what you've done. It's an inspiration.
And I'm still poor, so it's
Well,
just
maybe in the bank, but not in here. Um,
yeah, exactly.
and so I think that's part of it, right? Is you sign
Yeah.
up for that, and you know that there's going to be those challenges, and I find that you get what to me is an indicator that you're getting better at it is when there's less panic, there's less being frustrated about it when it goes wrong, and there's more, hey, what's the best decision we can make today? Because at the end of the day,
Right.
as much as all of us would like to hit rewind and go, okay, we'd like to go change the pricing thing, or we'd like to go have more money in the bank. Like decisions that were made, right? And so now we
Yeah.
are where we are, and what's the best decision we can make from here? And I think entrepreneurship really beats you with that over the head. And you've got to just kind of get okay with it and say, hey, okay, like, the reason most people don't make it is they eventually stop with one of those, right? And so for us, we just
Mm.
have the mentality we're not going to stop when that happens. We're going to solve it, we'll get through it, and we'll find our solution and we'll keep moving forward. And I think mentally, you just kind of have to get yourself in that state.
Entrepreneurship is essentially just a long road of problem
Yeah.
solving over and over
Great
and
way to
over
say
again.
it. It's a great. There's always going to be a
Yeah.
new problem. Now I'll take that 50,000
Yeah.
unit order problem though. You let me know. I'll let you know when that one comes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let you know. Yeah. I'll let you know who's interested.
Or when you need it for the store. No problem.
yeah, but yeah, just to let you know, I'm still poor. So I just, yeah, no,
We're
yes.
fighting a good fight, though.
Yeah, it's that's a long term problem solving thing. Okay, so I mean, your journey is kind of short, comparatively
Sure.
to other brands. But was there anything that you'd had done differently in the early stages?
Um, Too hard to say at this point. I think again we're learning as we go, and that's the most
Hmm.
important thing. And really, like Drew and I had a good conversation this morning. It's like we're not selling as much as we'd like on our site today. It's like, well, we'd love to sell more there, but again, I just said, hey, there's not a ton of money in the bank, right? So it doesn't. You can't go. We're
Yeah,
not launching $100,000 Facebook marketing campaign tomorrow. And
yeah,
so it's like, okay, well, how can we double down with the partners we have? How can we have new ones? We're sending some products. We have a good friend that has a great business in the golf space, does a lot of stuff with the Masters, and so we're sending some products there. And so again, it's like part of it is again, you said, how do you creatively solve problems? And to your point, I think we have a product line that can be a pretty sizable business, but it is a pretty unique customer, right? And so we've got to say, okay, where is that customer? Where are they going? And even if we can't maybe solve that directly today, who's a partner we can work with? And how can we provide them with great products that gets them really excited? So again, I think no regrets. We're just we're like you. We're problem solving every day, and we're a little earlier in the journey.
right. Okay, right. So should have sold two of my kids instead of one. I think people kind of see the professional website. It's very nice. See the professional products is very nice. Social media is done very nice, and then they kind of assume like, oh, we're swimming in cash.
Yeah, yeah,
We're living a
yeah.
life. We're in like the Bahamas and pina coladas and just like hanging with the ladies. But I mean, wife, but but it's actually very, very much not
Yeah.
so. Where like I think it's like it's hard because people expect like a certain image so they can feel safe purchasing from you, but it's actually in reality also
Yeah.
like there's a lot of stuff and a lot of sweat and tears and like worries and stress that people don't necessarily
Yeah.
see, and it's not so, what's the word, smooth
Yeah.
sailing as it seems on the
Yeah.
cover. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that's
um,
a great comment, and it's for us. I mean, I do believe in really having like a good professional site and photos and all of that. And I know that everyone says you can do everything on an iPhone now, but there's times you can do better. But then there's also that edge in of how do you humanize? And so for us, that's even
yep.
simple things of every box that goes out has a handwritten note from one of us. And so for us, it's like trying to give that touch where people can kind of see like, oh, okay, like, because at some point you can't do handwritten notes anymore, right? Like,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
for us, I think it's a really good point. And it's like, yeah, be professional, but also, and it's something we want to be better at is like, how can we humanize the brand? Because yeah, we're not going to sell $100 million and be super rich this year. Like we're a long ways away from that. But
Right.
it's still fun and exciting to sort of get up and get after it every day.
Mhm. All right. So then, for the kind of the roadmap, right? You guys are nimble. You guys started with everyday carry, kind of like products, and then you kind of switched to kind of bag carry products. And what's the roadmap? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
there something that is it different colors? Is it going to be like experimenting with different materials? Are you going to do different
Yeah.
sizes? And even if you don't have anything, is there something that you personally would like to kind of
Mm-hmm.
see going down the kind of journey
Yeah.
path towards the
I
future?
think we look at three channels of business, right? One is, and I'll bring this back to your product specific questions, but one is obviously our site, right, and obviously wanting to continue to bring traffic there and grow that. Two is we do take on some consulting projects which help to put some money in the bank, right, and those a lot of times those are fun and working with cool brands that maybe just need help with a certain project. And then three is really looking at sort of this wholesale partnership collaboration space, right? And so, there's not to say there aren't things outside of it, but I think today, based on where we're at and where we've come to, those are really the three areas that we look at. Hey, like, how much time should we be devoting to each of these, and what's the long-term solution. I think bringing that back to product, I think at the moment, are there more products we want to add? Yes. At the moment, like, we feel good about our assortment, and we've got to sell through some of what we have to generate the cash to do those things. Like, okay, what's the next colorway? Which we do have some of the camo units coming in. The tan we're not happy with enough yet, so that one's not coming yet. But it looks nice behind me, but it's just the quality's not quite there. So colorways for sure, new products for sure. And listen, we'd love to sort of get like back to one of your early questions and talking about the studio. The nice thing about having a studio where we can build some things is there's certain products, especially smaller ones or home space ones, where we can do really small runs. And to me, that creates a really fun model with your customer base. That's like, okay, what do you like, right? Because everyone will tell you what they like, but I always joke people vote better with their wallets than they do, with what they tell you. And so it's like, how do we start to experiment and say, okay, workspace is still doing and home goods is still doing well for us. What's the right next tray? What's the right next item that could be really interesting for people? So I don't know that I answered your question that well, but I think, 3 areas of business that we really want to focus on, and then products, for now, probably a little bit more on the color and size, but over the next couple of years, there's definitely other areas of products that we're excited to get into.
If hypothetically someone came to you and they're a hotel, and then they they usually work with like a specific type of material that kind of represents their brand a lot. Is that something that would that you guys would be open to kind of working together with to incorporate into your products, or is it just because Leander Studios is very specific in terms of like what they use and their product style? Like, how does that happen? Does that limit what you can do, or are you open to that kind of like part?
Yeah, I think we're always open, and it's sort of a 2-part solution, right? And I remember even early on with Huckberry, it was like, hey, for them, wax canvas is big. And I was like, do you guys want to figure out a wax canvas inlay on the wood for a valet tray that's specific for you? And at the time, we didn't go and explore that, but I think in each of those, the good thing is that we're really flexible and we can create. And I think back to your, would we want to do it? If it's a project we can take on and manage and we're excited about the partnership, then the easy answer is yes. I think the next part of that question is, well, do we also want to sell that, right? And I think that just goes to our discretion of, okay, does it fit with the brand, right? Or is it a project that's sort of so unique that it's like, hey, X hotel really wanted this, we can build it. We're happy to kind of build it and talk to them about it, but it's not something we're going to bring over and sell on our site. So I think that's really sort of where we can make that decision of, okay, do we want to just do it for someone, or do we want to build it for them and have sort of a version of it we sell for ourselves?
Okay, interesting. And then you guys, as seen on your Instagram, you guys partnered with like other people to create collaborative pieces. Yeah. How did that process come about? And like, what does that process look like for anyone who's interested?
Yeah. Reach out to us if you're interested. That part's easy. That was just our outreach, right? And those are either people we knew or, Eddie Pinero we didn't know, but has since become, a really good friend of ours and the brands. And I just think what he's doing out there with his YouTube channel is fantastic from just a motivation and inspirational standpoint. And so, he happened to be the first person we partnered with just because I thought he spoke to the brand so well. And honestly, it was just that it was a cold outreach. Like, it was just, hey, really like what you do. If we can be helpful to you at all in any way, and just sort of conversation, and went from there. Some of the other ones like Culture Kings is, the president there is a really good friend of mine. And so some of them happen to be people we know. Others have sort of just been, hey, people we get to know and feel like if they fit the brand really well and they're out there sort of trying to be their best selves, then that's somebody we're excited to work with.
Okay. Got a question here that's it's a very not a generic, but a question that you hear a lot on interviews when you enter like a company or something like that. So in 5 years, where do you see yourself? Where do you see Leander Studios in terms of like the product innovation? What do you got for impact and things like that?
Yeah. Big question, but a good question. Always hard to picture, and it changes, but we do have sort of a rough 5-year plan built out. And I think for us, it's more depth in the categories we have. Well, even before I go into the products, I'd say staying true to what we want the brand to be, right? Like, I think what we're trying to build is definitely a long play, right? This is not a simplistic, we have one product that we think is great and we're going to solely market and talk about that, right? Like we're trying to become something that is certainly big and ambitious from a brand standpoint. So to do that, obviously we have to stay true to the brand. I think from a product standpoint, obviously continuing to innovate and build with the product lines we have. I think we are certainly interested in apparel, headwear, and other accessories as we continue to grow. And we'd look at footwear down the line. I mean, footwear just tends to be the most cost intensive one to get into. So it's probably last on the list. But again, for us, like to stay true to kind of what we want to do, if we're looking at different areas of life and solving problems, there's a lot of areas to explore. I mean, we've had some good conversations with people that are interested in like building coffee makers and a whole sort of kit of things around coffee, right? And you think about different rituals of the day. So, if anything, the product lanes are probably too wide open for us. And so we try to really, challenge ourselves on, okay, is this a road we want to go down? And obviously so far that's been workspace, home, everyday carry, but we continue to look and talk about others. And I'd say, a little bit of guessing when you get 5 years out. But I think for the next year or two, it's really iterate in the spaces we're in, right? And get really good at those and kind of how do you tweak size? How do you tweak color so that the customers love it even to a new level? And then past there is, okay, how do we start to build into, new categories of business?
Yeah, I think when you guys like mentioned like shoe like boots or shoes, footwear, and things like that, it just reminds me suddenly of like Ether, the brand Ether apparel. Yeah, they do a lot of stuff in terms of apparel, but like they also do like snow apparel. They do motorcycle stuff, which is great and stuff. Is that something kind of like what like you're talking about, just like something to aspire to eventually kind of hitting that point where you can be like, okay, we can make this product, but we can also do this product as well, but we do really well, but in our kind of own aesthetic. Is that what you're talking about?
I think that's a good way to put it, right? That's a great brand. I haven't gone through their catalog recently, but I think as we look at it, and part of as we started, is most men I find, and women are probably the same, but I won't speak for women. I'll only speak for men on this statement. Is they get all their items from somewhere different. Right. I bought a bag from here. I get a t-shirt from here. I like my shoes from here. I like my pants from here. And I like my watch from there. And so, long term, would it be fantastic to be a one-stop shop for maybe, if not all of those items and more of them? Because at the end of the day, men tend to find something they like and stick with it for quite a period of time. Right. And so for us, obviously, we're in the very early stages of building that level of trust with customers in a couple areas of products that eventually they'd say, okay, well, I have a bag. It's great. My workspace is Leander. That's great. I see you're launching a t-shirt and I now have the trust to kind of go with you to that next step. And so, yes, I think that, would that be a great place to get to and part of the dream? Absolutely.
I think it's an interesting point just that I'd actually never considered was like to have a loyal or a loyal enough following where they trust you on your existing products that they can kind of take that next step with you into another category, which is kind of very interesting because like I'm sure some people are always wondering like when should I make that next step? Like how do I know that this step is the right step and this product will do well if I produce, just because a lot of people are always just, they have limited amount of money in the bank. They got to make these decisions on their own. And for this to be the right one, they need to, aside from the data, you kind of have to kind of make a leap of faith. So can you kind of talk more about like the process on like how that happens?
Well, I think, listen, we're still so young that there's not the perfect process for us. But I think as you get to size and scale, having been at other small companies, I think you get to this really interesting place where you have a good customer base, right? And your best customers are going to have your main products already. And so for your existing customers, a lot of times they're really interested in newness because they already like you, but they already have your main offering, right?
Everything.
So they're like, hey, I'm a super fan or whatever, super customer, whatever you want to call them. They're looking for newness. On the other side of that, there's the new customer that is coming into your staples, right? And so I think, that to me is the perfect dream. And you get to this balance if
Mhm.
you've got somewhere, let's just pretend it's a 50-50 mix of existing and new, where then you can get a little bit more. I mean, you're never going to have the perfect science of, is someone going to like this new product? But you can start to create
Mhm.
a really good and exciting balance of like, okay, I've got these core products. They're my best ones. I can now keep them in stock because I understand. And I'm going to continue to bring new customers to those because that's where I want them to start. It's my tried and true. But I've
Mhm.
got this whole other group that really likes me, but they're sort of bored with me if I'm not bringing some newness to the table. Now, sometimes newness can be a colorway or a size or something simple, but sometimes it can be a completely new product. And so I think, again, that's a fast forward situation for us that we're not in today, but as we grow, are excited to manage.
Yeah, I agree. I think as a retailer, it's something that we always kind of, I don't know if struggle is the right word, but juggle, because I think for us, because we're a retailer, we kind of have a responsibility to kind of keep the newness going, if you know what
Yeah.
I mean. So I think, whereas certain brands, when you produce your own product, you have the ability to produce new things and try things out, whereas retailers, you don't. So then from our
Yeah.
perspective, our thing is we got to keep finding, curating, and looking for uh, awesome brands like
Well, I appreciate you
Leander,
finding
and
us.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and then just having that kind of partnership and work out, shooting, pushing that product
Yeah.
out. So it's definitely something we relate to, and something that we're always concerning as well. So it's interesting to see from the other flip side
Yeah.
of it.
Awesome.
And all right, so before we wrap
Oh,
up
is this when the hard
here,
questions
because we're
come?
closing out. Yeah, exactly. What size are you wearing for your underwear? All right, so okay, so let's try to do some kind of fun
Yeah.
questions at the
Good.
end of the podcast. So then there is a few questions here. If you could choose one project for the studio to produce, it could be
Mm-hmm.
anything. Like, what would that be?
Man, that's a great question. I would need more time to give you different answers. I'm sure I could think of a bunch, but I'd say the one we're excited about right now is this Masters project. We've got some product built for them. I mean, we haven't met with them yet, so knock on
Mhm.
wood, I'm not jinxing anything, but I think it's a really good fit.
Sure.
I think it's a really interesting
Mhm.
space for us, and so that's the one right now that I'd say we're really excited to see what that could become.
But like, what is like one that's so ridiculously like you have no
Hmm.
limitations? It could be anything. It could be
A
like
collaboration, or
it
what
could
are
be
you
the
what are you thinking, Eddie? What's in your head?
yeah, yeah. It could be like a collaboration.
Hmm.
It could be like a new like a collaboration to create like the space next SpaceX, Leander leather rocket ship, or like what would it be? What would be like the
Yeah,
ideal, the dream project for
yeah.
you? Yeah.
Um, I give you probably you're gonna find a boring answer, but I think it's just working with the right people, right? It really is,
Uh-huh.
and it's like it's hard to know by the project, but like our Eddie
Yeah.
Panero collaboration didn't make a ton of money, but I
Mm.
think it's so important in establishing the brand and who the brand is. So I think for us, it's always like, and I don't know who that, I don't have a person who's like top of mind that's just like kind of fitting that. I mean, Eddie's a great example, but it's like, who are the people or the company that are really out there helping people to be their best, right? Because that's what we connect
Hmm.
to, right? Our connection is to, we want to be our best. We want to help other people be their best, right? Like that would be the simplified, take away your, elevate your everyday and all the nice slogans. It's like, how can we do that? And so for us, it's working with people that are really inspirational in that space. So I'll work on it better. Listen, we'll do this again. I'll work on some specific names and brands for you, but to us,
Yeah.
that's what gets me excited, right? It is really working with great people.
Gotcha. All right. I'll take it. I'll take it. But there's always next
Yeah, you'll
time.
get me next time.
Uh, yeah. But actually, it would be kind of interesting from my perspective. I think it would be kind of cool to see like a Leander version of like a briefcase.
Mm. It's been
Just
on my list.
if we're talking about like dreams,
Yeah,
right? Or it would be kind of fun to kind of play around with like the old school briefcase, but like a more innovative
I
kind of
like
take on
that.
it.
I like that.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So then, all right, so we got a few more questions here. Well, actually, you answered that one already in there. So then, if you let's talk about then how you pack out your bag.
Yeah.
Then, like, what does that look like? What's in your
Yeah.
bag?
Well, and it's interesting because I probably become much more of a bag snob in the last few years of my life. But I used to just sort of I'd buy a bag and I'd fill the space of the bag. And I think the way that Drew designed these, and I don't have everything at my fingertips, but I've got a few items here. Is there's four pieces. Let's see. I got three of them in front of me at least, so we can get a good enough idea. So there's two flat packs, right? I've got the smaller flat pack here. There's also a larger flat pack. Those both have their own sort of homes that they tuck into inside of the backpack, right? So I'm doing pens and pencils inside of this one. The bigger one, I'm doing all my tech stuff. And I used to just have my cords all over, and now I'm addicted to cord tacos. So every like cord is now organized, and that's got its own home. And then we've
Right.
got just really easy travel folio, right? So I've got passport and cards for this. This doesn't always come with me, but if I'm going international, then obviously it does. And then just easy DOP tech kit. For me, I use this as more toiletry. But a lot of people who carry more, kind of chargers and tech stuff than I do will use this as a tech kit. And so what I've found that's addicting and what our customers have told us who, love the product is the addicting part is how well it all sort of packs out as a system, right? So no longer are these kind of all these loose things because, a lot of times when you're trying to get into the bag, whether it's, okay, we've got the kids out somewhere on the weekend, or whether it's on a plane and it's 10 p.m. and I want to be able to find something easily, to be that well organized and packed out where, a lot of things like these have even just got little easy hooks on them where it's all right. I can reach in there and find them with ease without sort of digging around. And then sort of like we've got laptop compartment, which makes it super easy with the backpack, and then sort of just a little top stash thing that I'll usually have like business cards or just anything kind of easy I want to grab there. But yeah, it's really the organization to it is what sort of for me like changed how I pack and pack out, and just now find sort of so much easier. And my wife was giving me a hard time the other day because I was going around the house and looked like an addict looking for something, and I was just trying to find a couple cord tacos because I had a trip. And I was like, once you get used to being that level of organized, all of a sudden when you've got cords or cables or papers or whatever everywhere, you're like, it's frustrating. And I think that like I could give that same answer also to desk space, where it's like you used to kind of like get cluttered or have stuff, but once you get it settled, well, okay, you feel like you can sit there, your brain's really calm, you can work really well. And so again, it's like, how do we look at these different areas and problems and try to, solve them in a really, nice way for people?
And actually, the question I wanted to ask actually just came to mind was that throughout the journey of like a small business brand and kind of getting to where you want to be in the future, there's a lot of bumps and hardships and roadblocks. But throughout the journey, especially within the digital age, there are a lot of times where, at least for myself, is we get like imposter syndrome, or we look at other brands and we're like, damn, dude, they're killing it, or they're doing, wow, they did that, wow, I didn't even think of that, that was amazing. Like, do you guys get that? Do you guys feel that? And how do you guys kind of deal with that?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm sure everyone does to an extent, right? You always see something and you're like, man, that was good, or that was smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for the most part, I try to take them as learnings, right? And you got to do it in your own way, right? I mean, that it's usually is not going to work to immediately sort of copy something, but maybe this gets a little bit too cheesy and back to the brand, but I would say over the last sort of 2 to 3 years, I mean, I tune out a lot. I don't have time to sit and scroll on Instagram. I don't have time to dig through, the archives of what's cool.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's like
when you're on the throne, you're just like kind of doing work and just like kind of tuning out.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'm usually up early. I'm up at good joke, by the way. It took me a second. I'm up early. I'm trying to get some work done. I'm trying to get a workout in. Then it's like, okay, you're going to put dad hat
Yeah.
on for a little bit, right? Your kids don't care. They just want your time. They just want to see your face. They want you to care about them
Yeah.
and play with them. And then it's like, okay, there's, work time. And again, like, Leander's still our second thing, right? So it's a full-time job. And then it's
Mhm.
sort of like in the evening time, you're back to it. And, maybe a little like 30 minute of downtime and bed and repeat, right? And so I don't, there's definitely times I'll see something and go, wow, that's great. And you try to keep up with stuff in general. But I also think there's a value to really like, if you can really focus on improving yourself every day and you can focus on building great products and you can interact with the people who are already your customers and focus your time there. I think for me that helps because otherwise, yes, right. If you give me 2 hours and you let me go scroll everything and be like, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't do all this, then yeah, but then you're just swirling, right? There's not really a
Yeah.
solution to it. So I do my best not to.
Yeah. I think it's like once you start, it's a spiraling black
Yeah.
hole. It's like,
Yeah.
dang. Yeah. Yeah. I should have done this. Yeah. Yeah. It certainly is scrolling through social media and stuff like that could be beneficial for like inspiration stuff, but I also feel like take the wrong turn and it could be also like a kind of like a shitty kind of
Yeah.
journey. Then it's like, oh damn, these guys are killing it. But yeah, I agree. I think I agree in trying to tune out social media, and I think social media itself is just like 90% artificial
Yeah.
anyway. So it's like it's even companies that in a way, not that they're artificial, but more
Yeah.
like it seems like they're doing well, but I'm sure they're going through a shit ton of stuff
Yeah,
that the same
yeah.
that
Well, I
we're.
think the interesting thing about this period of time of technology and AI and whatever that becomes is as much as everyone wants to use that and leverage it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's making
Mhm.
everyone crave this and the human element more, right? Like
Yeah,
I actually, and I'll write it in a lot of emails because I know most people are assuming that's just like a scheduled email that's going to go out at X time. Um, but and so I'll be like, hey, like you can respond to me, right? Like I will
right.
answer your questions, and I see people doing that more and more, and I think it's because people are just overwhelmed. It's like
Mm.
I hear a lot of people were like direct mails working again, and I think it's because you think about it, there was this
Right.
time not that long ago where it was like, God, we got so much mail, and you just threw it all out. Well, like that's your email
Yeah,
times 10 now, right? Like it's
it's true. Yeah,
overwhelming. And so again, it's like it's very difficult, but I think all those moments you can find to have a real human reaction go a lot further than any of us think they do.
yeah. I 100% agree. I definitely, as a person too, I value in-person
Yeah.
interactions, even more so as getting as like in this digital age, but also as like an adult. I think those social interactions, once you once you leave college, it starts to lessen because the opportunities become far less than college,
Yeah.
where it's all about just meeting new people and just doing new things. So yeah, I think that's why I think the retail store is like so important to us, just because we get to
Yeah.
really
Yeah. You get to be face to face with
interact
people.
with those, yeah, so those customers. So it's really important for
Yeah.
us. Okay, so that is the podcast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that I think a lot of people would be very happy to listen to this and just really learn about you guys and the process and just realizing the people behind Leander Studios. And I hope you guys are really enjoying this conversation. Um, Before we finish up here, there is a few final thoughts for the people. You guys are new. For the aspiring entrepreneurs, the designers, the bag companies that have not been created yet. Um, First, I want to say, if you're trying to compete with Leander Studios, don't. But if they are not trying to compete with you, what kind of advice would you give them for them to kind of break into the industry or create products that people love?
Yeah. Just start. Just start. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no magic button. There's no, everything always changes as far as what works and what doesn't. So I think if it's something, and you said this in a different way, but it's like I think the worst thing you can do is get to the end of your life and regret not going for something that you wanted to go for, right? And so I think for everyone out there who's sort of thought about it and maybe I'll do it. And listen, you can go all in and just do that, or you can do it in, your spare time and your extra time. So just start, just start. The start's fun, the middle's hard, and then, it gets easier.
Yeah.
By the way, we're still in the middle.
Again.
It hasn't got easier yet, but
Yeah.
it does.
There you go. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, that's a good one. I think a lot of people just underestimate the just that starting point that makes all the difference. Okay, cool. So then, finally, for our listeners and people who are interested, how can they contact or stay connected with you
Yeah.
guys, Leander
Yeah,
Studios?
so we're one. I mean, you're welcome to share my contact information, Eddie, as far as email and anything.
Social
Yeah,
media,
yeah,
address,
yeah,
social security.
yeah. Mother's maiden name, all the good stuff. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we're on
Yeah.
Instagram, we're on Facebook with
Mhm.
Leander Studio. Our website's leanderstudio.com. Info at Leander Studio. You can email Justin at Leander Studio is my email. So we're always excited to hear from people out there, and however we can be helpful is always great.
Awesome, great. And I'll definitely put that in the show notes
Awesome.
as well. And if this is YouTube, it will also be in the description, section below. So, all right, great. Thank you for coming
Thanks, Eddie.
on.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun. I hope you guys listening enjoy this. And if you guys haven't seen or heard of Leander Studio, definitely check them out at their website, and their social media is also a great tool to kind of get an intro to the brand and what they offer as a company. And again, stay tuned with UrbanCred with our YouTube channel, and also subscribe to our podcast for more interviews like this. And thank you for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Awesome.
Peace.
Thanks, Eddie.